I proved Dr. Jack Kruse right. Light is the issue when it comes to blood sugar. It's not a food problem, it's a light problem. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I tested it, what happened, and also explain a little bit about the dawn effect and what information you can actually get from testing your blood sugar. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Emmanuelle Urbani, and if you want to learn more about me, I have linked in the description ways to work with me, freebies that you can get, etc. So, how did I prove Dr. Kruse right that blood sugar is a light problem? Well, it actually happened by accident, and it happened last summer in the middle of a massive heat wave. I was on track to test my ketones and my blood sugar, and I would go in between the two of them. So sometimes I would test my ketones and sometimes I would test my blood sugar. Typically, I would watch the sunrise and then be testing my blood sugar or ketones, depending on what I was trying to figure out that week. So it was a very hot summer day where it was over 40 degrees Celsius, which is, I don't know, I think about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Really hot day, totally sunny. And I was going to an event that this lovely woman was hosting for therapy involving horses, riding them. They're just, anyways, I'll talk more about that another time. And so the whole day was outside with no escape from the heat and the sun. And I took off my shoes for most of the time. So I was grounded as well. And because I have my own pity party sometimes and totally break all the rules because I'm feeling emotional, to bring a long story short, the equine facilitated therapy was very instrumental in helping me understand and process the grief of losing my own horse, which was a very large and central part of my life. But naturally, when I would go to one of those events, I would also feel very emotional. And sometimes a lot of emotions would come up, and I would make the mistake of trying to hide them, I suppose, with food. That day, when I was coming back after an entire day of eating properly, had watched the sunrise, had a good breakfast, and it was still boiling hot. So I was scantily clad, as I typically am with outdoor events, because I'm trying to get a maximum tan. So wearing a crop top and short jean shorts and being barefoot out in the sun all day long. Remember that. Lots of grounding. Then on my way home, I stopped at the store and I got two things. An entire bag of vinegar salt chips, potato chips, in avocado oil, but still, and a whole box of chocolate chip cookies. And I ate them all. In the car, in the heat, with the windows open, because I was having my own little personal pity party. Not a good thing to do, okay? I'm just saying I did it. But what was really interesting is that when I woke up the next morning and I tested my ketones, I still had low levels of ketones after eating an entire bag of chips and an entire box of chocolate chip cookies. How is that even possible? Well, I can tell you how it's possible. All of the sun I got, the heat, because both heat and UV index and the infrared index, let's call it, so like the high heat, is going to make sugar processing better and is going to allow you to not get as negatively affected by all of this sugar. And this is the reason why I was able to maintain low levels of ketones the next morning, despite consuming, a massive amount of sugar and carbohydrates That should not have happened at all. If it was a food story, that would never have happened. Never mind the fact that as somebody who struggled massively with metabolic hypoglycemia before I understood about any of this, and I would actually, when I gave birth to my first kid, it got to the point where I would have to keep food beside my bed at night, during the night. Like, that's how terribly dysregulated I was when it came to that. And whatever my management strategies were before, when I began to understand this and I bought my first meter, which is a Keto Mojo, that's the one I bought, and I started testing my blood sugar and my ketones in response to light. So every time I would feel woozy for whatever reason or felt like my blood sugar was dropping, I would test it. And I would keep track of what I was doing, what I was eating, and all of these things. And that's how I figured out that my metabolic hypoglycemia was being triggered by non-native EMFs and artificial light. Getting rid of those got rid of the problem. And I can make the problem appear today if I forget my glasses, which almost never happens anymore. Or more commonly is I go to someone's house with a lot of blaring lights and a ton of cell phones in the summer, and I don't bring a sweater to wear in the house. Like, I don't cover my skin. Remember that your skin plays a role. It's not just your eyes. So I find most people forget that they're like, well, I'm wearing my blue blockers. Great. But you're wearing shorts and a tank top. So you're going to need a sweater or pants, depending on how long you're staying indoors. That's how I did that. Now moving on to the dawn effect and understanding it a little bit more. So anytime you go and get your cortisol level tested, like a saliva test, or you're testing your blood sugar, it actually tells you to wait 1 hour after waking up. And there's a lot of misconceptions around if you wake up in the morning and your blood sugar is high, what does that really mean? And what are you supposed to then eat a large amount of protein? Is that going to make the blood sugar worse? First of all, you have the dawn effect typically when your circadian signaling isn't up to par and you don't have the right time, so your blood sugar is more elevated. You experience a more pronounced dawn effect. But how I see it is that you have this increase in blood sugar and cortisol because they walk together. That's meant to happen in order for you to see the sunrise. So you're meant to have somewhat of a rise, not a massive one. You're not meant to be, obviously, type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. But you're meant to have a rise and then go out for sunrise upon rising. And that increased cortisol, that increase stimulates the entire cascade of everything that sunrise does for you. Like starting the cascade of sex hormone creation, making you feel alert, stopping melatonin circulation in the brain, etc., etc., etc. You kind of, let's call the dawn effect, a healthy dawn effect, and a healthy cortisol spike in the morning, the food or ingredients required to maximize your sunrise routine, which is why I learned that I should be measuring my blood glucose after sunrise. Should I be going outside for sunrise and then measuring it upon my return? And I have had clients experiment with testing their blood sugar when they don't go for sunrise one day and then when they do. And especially in people who are insulin resistant, the difference between the non-sunrise days and the sunrise days is quite significant. Now, I'm not really a big fan of a continuous glucose monitor because they require radio frequencies in order for them to send information to your device and keep track. So there is an issue with them. Now, if you have one and you're trying to figure out what's happening, here are some little tips for deciphering what's going on. So, for example, if you are noticing spikes unrelated to food intake, That's where you have to pay close attention to your environment to understand what's causing it. For example, if you have a spike that happens at night when you go to bed, you know that's going to tank your sleep, because an insulin spike means melatonin can't rise properly, cortisol can't drop properly, and you can't go into restorative sleep as well, right? There was a problem with that. If you are noticing a spike that's directly correlated to you eating a candy bar, that's a different story. But if you are monitoring yourself and noticing spikes that are not related to food intake, light and EMF exposure is where you've got to look. And one of the EMF things, which I could do in another video, that most people overlook is we've become hyper alert on the radio frequency side and are maybe not giving enough attention to dirty electricity or electromagnetic interference and magnetic and electric fields that are foreign. So at the end of the day, your light exposure matters more than your food exposure. And that is what I proved to myself by doing this to myself last year.